and hopefully this session will help you as your county. It's part of the county leadership series, and the session tonight is reaching your county goals. So we've done a lot of stuff working with individual officers over the last few webinars, and we'll probably build it on some of the stuff we've done previous around now working as an executive. And on this one, it's very much reaching your county goals as an executive and identifying what those goals are. So that's what we're going to focus on tonight. As I said, you have myself and you have Paula Prunty online as well, so she'll take in some of the questions and feedback into some of the slides as we go along too. So let's get started. Reaching your county goals, what we're looking for, if you have any questions at all throughout the night, feel free to use the Q&A function or type in the chat. As I said, we engage back with yourselves and we'll answer any questions or try to answer any questions that you have. If you have any problem with any sound or anything at any stage, if you just leave the webinar and come back in, just sometimes the computer might disconnect. So what we're going to look at is what are our goals. There's no point in saying we want to reach our county goals when we don't know what a goal is in the first place. What is goal setting, and then getting an action plan in place to actually achieve your goals. So they're the sections we're going to look at as we go through this webinar. So firstly, what is a goal? So a goal, quite simply, is a purpose or something that we want to achieve. So there's loads of big highfalutin definitions, but a nice simple one, it's a purpose or something that you want to achieve. So as an executive, you talk about your goals for the year or your goals for the month. It's something that you want to achieve as an executive. It's something that you are given purpose towards. So that's a nice simple explanation. And goals are what take us forward in life. So if we didn't have goals or ambitions, we'd just be living in the now. We'd be just staying where we are. So they are what takes us forward in life. They're the oxygen of our dreams. So you'll see dreams mentioned in a few things as we go along. And we're not, you might think we're in dream world as we go along, but it very much is saying you can't get to your dreams unless you have goals to get you there. So hence the oxygen of your dreams. My dream is out here. How am I going to get there? I'm going to set a goal, set a goal, set a goal. So for yourself as an executive, what is your dream? Where do you want to be as an executive? Then you need to set goals to actually bring you there. So that's very much what it is. And those goals are the small things that you want to achieve. Types of goals, they're short term, mid-term, and long term. So your short term goals might be something that you want done in the next 2 weeks, for instance. What is the short term goal? You may not require a progress review, because a progress review would nearly be the time that you have to actually do it. So as an executive, what is things that we know that's happening in the next 2 weeks, for instance? What do we need to do? Who's going to do them, etc., etc. Then you have your long term goals on the other side, which need to be reviewed regularly, because they may change, and set small periodic goals. So yes, this is my long-term goal, but what's my short-term goals to get me there? And they may require reevaluation. So this is something we wanted. Maybe we set out to have 4 new sponsors by the end of 2023. So then we get to the end of 2022, we need to review it and break it down into smaller goals to see how far on we've progressed. Do we need to speed up things? Do we need to push the date out? So they're your long-term ones that are further out. And then the mid-term kind of fall in between that. So maybe in a month's time or 2 months' time, that they still take a bit of time, but they're not something that's way out there in the distance. So you need to decide as an executive, what's our short-term goals, our mid-term, and our long-term. And you could be sitting there on the webinar saying, Jesus, we haven't time to do this, never mind set goals. A lot of the times you don't have time because you don't know actually what you're working towards. There's a million and one things going on. Instead of actually defining what your short-term goals, what is it we want to do, and just going after them for the time being. So it is really important to look at goal setting. So just going to do a quick little poll here in this one. And on this, I'm just going to ask you, so it'll pop up on the screen in a second. Have you met as an executive to set out your short, medium, and long-term goals for the year? So I'm going to pop that up. And then Paul is going to tell us the percentage that have actually clicked yes or no. So we see that you've actually written down, this is our short-term goals, this is our medium-term goals, this is our long-term goals.
Well, you were 50-50 there for a long time, Lynn, but it's more 75% is no. And changing 40-60, 40% yes, 60% no.
Okay, so in that, you can see that some counties do and some counties don't. And even, I suppose, and Paul, you've been involved in this before, where we ask a county, have you got it done? Oh yeah, we've done it. And then we say, well, what are the, oh sure, we have to get fixtures out for next week. That's it. And so by the time we've that done, we've no time for anything else. That's not a goal. That's something that has to be done anyway. Yes, it's a short term to get X, Y, or Z done. So that's your short term. But what does it fit into? What's the bigger thing this is fitting into? And what about all the other stuff you need to do as an executive? And it's also going to help you identify the people that you're actually going to need in relation to this as well. So that was just to see, okay, where are we? How many people have actually done this? And if you haven't, hopefully after tonight, you'll see the benefit, or you'll be saying, no, they're raving, we're not actually going to do this at all. But either way, hopefully you'll see the benefits of having the goals. So what is goal setting then, I suppose, is the next part. So if you have your goal, how do you go about actually setting the goal? So goal setting is the process of deciding what you want to accomplish and devising a plan to achieve the result you require. So the goal is actually just knowing what the goal is, but the setting is actually putting the plan in place to achieve the result you require. It's establishing, as I said, the short and long-term objectives. So what's the steps we need to get there? But the key thing in this is you have deadlines of when you need to do it and measurables, so you'll know that we actually achieved it or we didn't achieve it. And goal setting is a great way of keeping you motivated as an executive. There's nothing better when you say, okay, this is something we want to achieve. And when you actually achieve it, that sense of purpose of everyone, and geez, that was great. Okay, we said we were going to do it. Now look what we're after doing. So setting those deadlines and the quantifiable measurables is very much involved in the goal setting aspect of it. So thinking at county executive level, why is setting goals as an executive important? So just in the chat there, if you want to type a few things, why do you think is setting goals as an executive important? And Paula's going to feed back on some of these as well. And feel free, Paula, you'll be adding in a few of your own, I'd say, no doubt, along the way.
Absolutely. And I think, Lynn, even in that first one, very often as well, when we talk to executives, they have put different aspects in place and they mightn't have necessarily regarded them as a goal, but it is something they've actually set out. And I think sometimes it's the language as well that's used. And maybe tonight it's, I suppose, a different way of looking at all of that as well, but how to have a proper conversation around goal setting. So some of the things that has come in here about providing direction and everyone knowing what they're doing.
Yeah, so if you clearly know your goals, well then everybody has the same place to go towards.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that direction, and we're going to be talking about that now in a few minutes, about the direction you're going in.
Yeah, another one coming in is that we have a plan going forward of what needs to be done for the year ahead.
Yeah, brilliant. And I'm sure on that point as well, which we'll talk about, is you have a plan going forward and you know who's supposed to do it, so that it's not all falling back on one person as well. So yeah, some really good points there.
Yeah, just the last one is a focus for the year going forward.
Brilliant. Yeah. So what do we actually want to achieve? What do we want to focus on? Is really important.
And last one, to have a plan in place, see what is achievable, and delegate.
Yeah. Keyword there, Sinead, delegate.
Yes, exactly.
To make sure you can get other people to actually help you out as well. So some great things there as to why it is important. And don't get me wrong, we fully are aware that sometimes you're thinking it's a hard time to get what's done today. But actually by doing this, it will save you time in the long run to actually know what it is, when it needs to be done. And maybe you're spending time on something now that doesn't need to be done until 6 months' time. So looking at that. And then a final little question there, just in it, what type of goals would you set as an executive? What are the types of things? And as Paula says, some of the things you might think aren't goals could be goals. So what are some of the types of goals what's some goals that you'd set as a county executive? So throw them in the chat there as well.
Yeah. One that has come in is fundraising, Lynn. So
fundraising,
target for fundraising.
So there might be a set amount that you want, and that's important as an executive as well. And I know in the team building webinar, I think it was Paula last year, that people can watch back on, we were saying, like, instead of every team coming to you and going, I want this, the importance of having the budget at the start of the year will actually, instead of 10 mini fundraisers, here's one big one, because we've actually set a goal of having a major fundraiser at the end of it. Yeah.
One, Lynn, that we probably typically hear is get all fixtures played.
Yeah. So and that can be both short term and medium term usually, because the long it's not over a year. We'd love to have a few years to split them.
Yes,
But yeah,
exactly.
that they're the goals to be there.
Yeah, and I suppose from our perspective, Lynn, we'd always maybe even, I suppose, challenge county boards to look at their fixture plan. And we'd always say to have meaningful fixture plans in place. So it's not a matter of playing all fixtures over 1 week or 2 weeks. And then that maybe player has nothing else for the rest of the year. So I suppose it's about looking at the full year in general when it comes to fixtures.
Yeah,
Um, Phil has said about unskilled members.
probably
So maybe me
upskill, would it be?
upskilling them must be to
Yeah,
upskill the members. Yeah. Sinead said about website to have a new age group in fixtures, i.e. street leagues. Yeah,
brilliant. So
Phil come in to correct that. Upskill members. Yeah, which is really important.
and if you think of that, even Paula, there's like probably three or four very different things. So if you haven't written them down as goals, what normally happens is, you know what, we'll sort out the fixtures and we get so caught up in the fixtures forever that we never actually get to upskilling the members, or we never actually get to the website. And you come round to the end of it and you're like, oh Jesus, so we still haven't done that, and we're back to planning our fixtures again. So that's why it's important to have the goals written out, as you say, and then when we need to do them.
Exactly. And Donna's come in to assist clubs with improving coaching.
Brilliant. Yeah, so there are all these things. Some of them will be goals for you as an executive, while others might be goals you're achieving as an executive, but for the benefit of others. So either way, they're really important goals. And this little quote here is just kind of sums some of it up, and that setting goals is the first step in turning the invisible into the visible. So something that you really want to see in your county, really want done in your county, if it's not there at the minute, well then it's invisible. But if you actually set goals to get there, it becomes visible. It's something you're going to see. You're going to see what you've achieved. It's going to keep you motivated. So setting goals is very much the first step in turning the invisible into the visible. So you will see your work being done when you see the actual final product. And that's I think just a quote that sums things up really well in relation to it. And those 5 reasons why goal setting is important. And we're going to go through each of these just so that you can see what we mean by it. But one, goals give you focus. So we'll see what that means. Goals allow you to measure progress, which is really important as a county executive, to keep you locked in and undistracted. I know some county executive members might say they don't want to be locked into it. I've been here or whatever long enough, but gets you locked into what you're trying to focus on. It helps you overcome procrastination. So a bit like that we mentioned about, we keep pushing stuff out to the end. And then goals give you motivation. So what do we mean by these in a little bit more detail? So goals give you focus. What do we mean by that? So if you just sit and listen, imagine you have to shoot an arrow without being given a target. Okay, so Paul is after handing you all an arrow and said, okay, you have to shoot this arrow. Where you go? You've no target. Where would you aim? Okay, so that's the first thing to think on. And say you did aim at some random thing because you hadn't a clue. You said, Paula is absolutely raving. He's given us nothing. She just handed us an arrow and told us to shoot it. Why would you actually aim there? So what made you think that was the place to aim? And what would the purpose be? Okay, so hopefully you're thinking, okay, I have this arrow. I had no idea where to aim it. So just for the sake of aiming, I fired it out there. Didn't know why I done it. There was absolutely no purpose behind it. And you're kind of feeling a little bit foolish at the end of it. So that's when goals don't have a focus. The goals are what give you direction. Okay, so for your ideas, you could be out there having all those ideas, but not a clue why you're coming up with the ideas, what direction they're going to bring you in, and what's the purpose of the ideas you're bringing to the table. But when you actually trash them out, they become goals. Okay, they give you direction, they give you something that you want to do. So by setting goals for yourselves as an executive, you're giving yourselves a target to shoot for. It doesn't have to be 30 goals. It could be, here's 10 things we want to achieve for the year as a county executive. Okay, so there are goals we're going to achieve. Now you have something to shoot for. And what's really important as an executive is that you're going there together, so that you're not shooting one side and the other executive member is shooting in the opposite direction. You all clearly know what the targets are that you're trying to shoot for. And this sense of direction is what allows your mind to focus on the target, and rather than waste energy shooting aimlessly, it allows you to hit your target and reach your goal. I've no doubt there's officers on the call that will be thinking, listen, I have done so much work in X, Y, or Z, and by the end of it, I thought to myself, why did it bother? What was the point of it? Or nobody bought into it. Or I can't see any end product. And maybe that's because we were constantly shooting at things that were aimless, in that we weren't doing it together for a start. We weren't thinking it through as to why we were trying to do that. So it's to make sure that you really have a reason, a real clear target as to why you're doing it, and then you have something to go towards to reach your goal. So it gives you a real focus. We're not going to ask you to type in the chat, but just to think to yourselves, one of your county goals, or maybe a goal that you want to have if you haven't done it. Do you have a clear target as to where you want to be with that goal at the end of the year? Or is it just words? So for instance, as you said, fixtures, that's not a goal. The goal has to be what you want to do with those fixtures within the next month or 2 months or 6 months. So having a clear target, because if you don't have a clear target, as an executive, you're going to go off in different directions to reach there. So think of your county goals. Do you have a clear target? So that's number one. Goals give you focus. Number two, goals allow you to measure progress. Our county executives do brilliant work, and I'm sure at times are frustrated because they're not sure they're progressing or whatever. So they do help you measure progress. So by setting goals for yourself, you're able to measure your progress because you have a fixed endpoint or benchmark to compare with. So if you were hoping to fundraise, as Paula says, maybe you were looking to raise 50,000. Okay, that's what's going to run your teams for the year. Well, if you know that's your benchmark and you're only at 10,000, well, then you're measuring your progress and you know you have a good bit to go yet. Versus, you know what, that fundraiser we ran was unbelievable. We took in 48,000. Like, you're pretty happy with yourself that you're nearly there. Okay, so you have a fixed endpoint or benchmark to compare with. It's often hard to see progress because it's something that is that invisible until you get to the visible. But measuring change and recording it to review later can help you see that you actually are making progress and will reach your goal if you keep going. So even with your fixtures, instead of saying, okay, we have 10 championship matches, and you're constantly saying, oh, geez, we're not at the semi-finals yet. We're not at the semi-finals yet. We're not at the semi-finals yet. Don't look at it that way. Because semi-finals, the most games you've left is 3 games. What about saying, look at the amount of games you're after going through. We've now done 5 games out of that. We're now up to 15 games out of that. We're now up to, so measure your change. If we do all our games for the year, they come up to 220 games across all age groups. We're now at 160 games. It just gives you that drive as an executive that you can actually measure your progress and keep going with your goals. Measuring progress to your goal lets you see whether you've made a dent. Are you at a standstill? Have you fallen behind? Maybe you're ahead. Maybe you've reached your goal. You're there ahead of the time. But it lets you actually see where you are. And this information is useful in helping you make or adjust a plan of action for getting on track. So if you steer off it, by actually measuring the progress, it takes you back in line again, which is important for any goal. It gives you a realistic big picture as to how you're doing along the way. So here's the 10 things we wanted to achieve as an executive. You can imagine yourself meeting in June, for instance, and you're doing, okay, a progress report of all these goals. Okay, we're slightly behind in one, but we're way ahead in this one. It actually gives yourself a bit of motivation as an executive to keep working together towards the same thing. And maybe here's external people we need to get involved for X, Y, or Z. So just keeping that big picture. But without any type of progress indicator, you find yourself either completely overwhelmed or, do you know what, we're great because we're way better than we are, until you come to the end of the year and realize you didn't achieve half of what you wanted to achieve. So it's so important. So again, the second question, just to mull over to yourselves, not for the chat. Have you set check-in points as an executive for your goals? So I asked you already, have you set the goals? Have you had that meeting? So for the ones who have you set a check-in point? And a check-in point doesn't mean, oh yeah, so we have a county executive meeting coming next week. It's actually a check-in point for your goals. Yes, you'll talk about them through your county executive meetings, but to physically sit and say the 10 goals we wrote down, we're having a meeting specifically to discuss these and put a check-in point from them. And that's really important to have. And Paula, feel free to come in any of these if you need as well. Goals keep you locked in and undistracted. So when you have a certain endpoint in mind, you automatically stay away from certain distractions and stay focused on the goals. And I think we can definitely all say we can be easily distracted at times. So if you have that certain endpoint in mind, you automatically stay away from them. So you're looking, no, that's where I'm going to be by June. That's what we're going to have achieved. So to get a better idea, imagine this again. So using the imaginations tonight, your best friend is moving to Australia and their flight takes off at 9 p.m. You leave right after work at 8:30 p.m. to see them off, and you know it's a 20-minute walk to get to the airport. Okay, so you're leaving at 8:30, 20-minute walk to get to the airport, and that flight's gone at 9. So you make it a goal to reach the airport in 15 minutes by jogging so that you have more time to say your goodbyes. So that's the goal you've set. I'm going to be there in 15 minutes because I want to have more time to say goodbye to my best friend. Would you get distracted by anything along the way? Okay, so would you get distracted by anything along the way? Would you stop for a break or a snack? Because maybe you just finished work and you decided, actually, you know what, I'm starving. So would you stop for a break or a snack? Would you stop by your house before going to the airport? Knowing the tight time scale that you have? And I can bet you answered no for each of those questions. And at the end of the day, this is what a goal gives you. It's focus. So it tries to remove the distractions that was there. So if you didn't have a focus, if you were like, well, I think they're leaving at 9:30, or you know what, maybe it's 10 o'clock, you probably would have stopped for all those. Okay, and it's the same with your goals. If you don't set that time schedule that you want them done on, the steps to get you there, it'll still be sitting there at the end of the year because you'll have distracted yourself with all the other stuff that comes in instead of actually focusing on what you wanted to achieve as a county executive. So the focus is really important. It stops that distraction. No matter who you meet along the way and what you see, your goal allows you to stay locked in. Now, obviously, there may be something out of the ordinary. Something may crop up in the county that you didn't expect to happen, but then you come back to your goal again and get back on track. You subconsciously keep away from your distractions and the focus remains only on the goal. So again, for a question for yourself to think of distractions you have within the county. How could these hinder your goals? Okay, so have my goals there. What's the distractions that could potentially hinder your goals? And Paul, I know we do quite a bit of goal setting in relation to what we want to achieve for our plans for the year. And we definitely have distractions that come in every now and again. But I don't know if you have any examples of this or even your thoughts on the last 3 points before we go to the final two.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Lynn. I think exactly as you say that very easily you can set out with the best plan at the start of the year and then get distracted. I suppose from our perspective, and even going back to my role as the operations and planning manager, it's my job to look at the plan, it's my job to keep on track, and it's my job to look at the time bound. So it's somebody is responsible to go, we said we'd do this by May, we said we'd do this by April, or we said we'd have whatever in place. So I think that's important as well. And somebody has to be the one not to get distracted, because as you say, Lynn, different things may come up within a county that wasn't expected. They're still going to have to be dealt with. But that doesn't mean to say the plan has to stop. Work can still go on, or you could go, right, May wasn't realistic, we can now extend that into June. But it's not going, we're just not doing it. It's a matter of, as you say, extending the time, dealing with the distraction, but getting back on track again.
And when Paula has you in a plan, if it was due by May, she come looking in April. So just remember you have some of those people as well. Only messing Paula, but yeah, it is so important that
reminders are good, Lynn. Reminders are good.
Making sure that you're there on time. No, thanks for that. And the last two, I suppose, of these goals help you overcome procrastination. So when you set a goal as an executive, you make yourself accountable to finish the task. So we've said this is what we want to achieve. We now are accountable to, as a group and each other, to make it actually happen. So it makes you accountable from it. This is in complete contrast to when you do things off a whim, and it doesn't matter whether you complete them or not. So you know what? This is something we just decided to do as an executive. We didn't plan to do it, but you know what? If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Versus, no, that's the 10 things we said we had to happen. Do keep in mind, though, that long-term goals can promote procrastination. So most people aren't good with deadlines 3 months away or 6 months away. So they can actually promote, or do you know what? It's 3 months away, so I'm not even going to think about it till the week before it. Okay, so they can promote procrastination. So if you do have a long-term goal, that could be a bigger fundraiser. It could be a number of new clubs in the county. Whatever your long-term goal is, it is better to break it down into several shorter-term goals. So each step of it then will bring you toward your longer-term goal, so that you complete a chunk of the longer-term goal every month, week, or even every day, whichever way it breaks it down. But that way you're not procrastinating the long-term goal, because you're still achieving your short terms, your short terms, your short terms, and you're still making it onto the long term. Versus 3 months away, we worry about it a week beforehand. Okay, so break down your long-term goals. So again, just a thought for you to think about in your county. What have you procrastinated on as a county? Maybe you haven't. And how can you get focus on this again? So it is something we really wanted to achieve as an executive, but with distractions and everything else, or pushing it down the line, we just left it there. So maybe it is that you decide you want, I know a lot of counties do say a team of the year or team of the championship, or whatever. There's no point in turning around a week before the final and saying we're going to run a team of the championship, because you'll have missed all the games to actually look at the other players. So if that's what you want to do, yes, you start planning it now. It's not till 6 months' time. What's the shorter term goals that we can do between now and 6 months? It could be booking venue, it could be putting a group in place to pick them, it could be making sure that every game is looked at. So the shorter term goals to actually get you there to the long term goal. And the fifth one, goals give you motivation. So the root of all motivation or inspiration you've ever felt in your entire life are goals. Because you've wanted to do something, you've gone after it, and because you've achieved it, you feel really inspired, you feel really motivated. If you didn't have the goal, you never would have went after it in the first place. So that's why it's the motivation or inspiration in your life. It provides a foundation for your drive. So it gives you something to drive on, something you really want to achieve. So even taking the county executive out of it from a personal perspective, what's your goal? What's your goal for this year, for this month, for this week, even at the end of it? I think after Congress, our goal is to keep the tiredness away for the rest of the week. But goal setting provides you the foundation for your drive. So by making a goal, you give yourself a concrete endpoint to aim for and get excited about it. Okay, so if I achieve this, this is something I wanted. If I achieve it, I'll get really excited about it. And as an executive, then it's to celebrate it as well. Gives you something to focus on and put 100% of your effort into, which is what develops motivation. So I really want to get there. This is what I'm going to do. Goals are simply tools to focus your energy in positive directions, and these can be changed as your priorities change. So we did want to do this. We wanted to raise 60,000 in fundraiser, but you know what? An absolutely brilliant sponsor came on board that we didn't expect, and they're putting 20,000 into it. So now we have to change the direction of what we were trying to do, and your priorities have changed in something else. Could be new ones added, could be others dropped, and that's fine. But by setting goals for what you want to do, it'll change your motivation in that direction. So again, as a county executive, how can you ensure your goals keep you motivated? How can you ensure the full executive is motivated for those goals? And they certainly won't be motivated if only one or two officers know about them and know about the progress. Everybody needs to be involved, and everybody needs to know where it is, where they fit into it, what's the percentage of it that they're actually feeding into, and how you can actually achieve those goals together. And the goals must be SMART goals. And I know for a lot of people you've heard this over and over again, but it's so important that they're specific, measured, achievable, relevant, and timed. So specific goals: who, what, where, when, why. Very specific in relation to your goals. That they're measured. You can't improve on something that you can't measure. So you can't achieve your goal if you don't know where you're starting from and where you're actually going to. So it has to be measured. It has to be achievable. So challenging but not impossible. So for a lot of counties, we're doing volunteer support plans at the minute. And as part of that, we're doing the roadmaps. There's no point in having the whole roadmap full of stuff that you've already achieved. But there's also no point in putting a roadmap of stuff that is completely out of your league. So it's having something that's really challenging to get to it, but it's not impossible to get to it, so that it can drive you, that it's relevant, that it's closely connected to the objective, that your executive members aren't sitting there going, why have we is this a goal? Sure, we don't even need it. Okay, so what's the reason for it? What's the relevance to what you're trying to do? And that it's timed. There must be a completion date that holds you accountable, and not that you keep procrastinating, that you have a completion date that you're going to have that goal actually achieved by. And the steps to set them: number one, you need to identify goals. What is it that you're actually doing? So as an executive, these are the steps you need to be doing. Identify your goals, set the objectives against them, and you'll see a little template coming up. List what's potential obstacles for getting to those goals. So what are obstacles we may come across? Sinead, I think it was said about delegation, okay? So identify the people. So who is it within the executive that needs to do things to actually get to these goals? Where's the external people you need to bring in to help you get towards these goals? So your goals don't always have to be what you as an executive are doing, but it's things that are getting done for your county that could be actually in relation to your goals. List the skills that's needed and make sure you have the people there then with those skills to actually achieve your goal for you. Develop a plan, to put the steps in place as to how you get there, and then list the benefits. If we actually achieve this, look what the benefits are going to be. Okay, if we achieve it, look what the benefits are going to be. Things like maybe a player development program you're trying to organise a lot of counties at the minute. If we get all the coaches, if we get all the players, look what the benefits could be. Okay, to do that, who's the people we need involved? What's the potential obstacles? What's the skills that's needed? And there's our goal. There's what we're going for. So these are your steps to set goals, and you work as an executive to actually get there. This is kind of brings the whole thing together. Every county executive has a dream of where they want to be. If you don't, there's something wrong. Okay, what is your dream? So a dream written down with a date becomes a goal. And can I say, a dream of winning the All Ireland, that's just one little thing, but that's something that so many factors have to come into. But what as an executive is your dream? So a dream written down with a date becomes a goal. A goal then broken down into steps becomes a plan. So you can't achieve your goal unless you have a plan to get there. And then a plan backed by action makes your dreams come true. Okay, so a plan backed by action makes your dreams come true. So you have your goal, you've written down your dream, you have your goal to get there, you put a plan in place to get it, which is the steps, then you action those steps, and if that all works, your dreams can come true. So that's how important it is for you as an executive to do your goals and then put an action plan in place, and an effective action plan. So planning on turning your vision into a reality, because if you are, what's the best way to avoid challenges and problems during this journey? It's a solid action plan. So my goal is there. What is the action plan to actually get me to the end to achieve that goal? So it's a checklist for the steps or tasks you need to complete in order to achieve the goals you've set. So this is my goal, my endpoint. What's the steps that I need to do to actually get to that endpoint? It's an essential part of the planning process and helps with improving teamwork planning. So as mentioned previously, we have the county roadmaps, and there's targets that's set for it. There's the steps that you're going to need to get there, and there's who's going to have to do it. So it's the breakdown of how to actually get to your goal is your action plan. The components of it: a well-defined description of the goal to be achieved. So what is it that we're trying to achieve? The tasks and steps that need to be carried out to reach the goal. The people who'll be in charge of carrying out each task. When will these tasks be completed? So that's your deadlines and your milestones. So when you do those check-in meetings, you can see, okay, are we doing it to schedule? Are we not doing it to schedule? Resources needed to complete the task. So what are we going to need? Resources doesn't always mean money. It can be people, can be facilities, can be whatever's needed to actually get to complete that task. And then measure to evaluate progress. Where are we in relation to achieving our goals? Because if you don't measure it, and maybe at the end of the year you realize you were so far away from it, you're going to be gutted from it. Okay, there's a real sense of underachievement instead of actually going, okay, no, we were 40% away from it by the end of the year and we still got there. That was a massive achievement. Okay, so measure to evaluate progress. What's great about having everything listed down in one location is it makes it easier to track progress and effectively plan things out. And an action plan is not something set in stone. As circumstances change, you might need to revisit, which we mentioned, it could be the fundraising target or whatever it is, and make adjustments to meet the latest needs. And planning helps you to prepare for the obstacles ahead and keep you on track. So if you have that, you're not going to be able to plan for every obstacle, but if you can foresee some of them, well, then you're able to maneuver things around them. And with an effective action plan, you can boost your productivity and keep yourself focused as an executive. Because everybody knows the steps, who's responsible, where you're going to get it, and you're achieving it together, which is huge. I can't stress that enough. It's not one or two people knowing that, it's achieving it together. Paul, I'm not sure if you've any on the components of an action plan, and I know even from our strategic plan, if we didn't have steps of how to get there and where we were going to go, we'd be sitting looking at a document, we may as well put it on the shelf.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree with you, Lynn. And as you say, the tasks, and I think in previous slide we talked about breaking down into various chunks and the different projects, because like everything, goals have different aspects, be it between the PR angle, the development angle, and maybe the financial angle. So there are different things that come together to form the achievement of that goal. So absolutely, it has to be broken down into tasks. And I don't know if anyone was listening to, there was an interview with the manager of the Camogie All Ireland Club Champions that from Galway that won at the weekend. And the interviewer actually said to him, obviously you're doing something right in the club. And he goes, this didn't just start at the start of this championship. This started when these girls were under 9 and under 10 in the club, and the coaching structures and the environment that we put there. So he said this plan started a long time ago. And I thought it was a really interesting point and carried a lot of what you're even saying tonight, Lynn. I was thinking he's definitely done a Lynn Savage webinar prior to this. Pulling all those parts together, starting the journey, and the journey starts then. So we also have to be realistic with what we're going to achieve in year one, but we also have to keep the faith to what we are doing, and that you will see achievements if you stick to your plan and stick to the goals that you've set out, because there is that longer term goal there to be achieved.
And I'm sure, Paula, him like everyone else has come across plenty of distractions and everything else, but the fact that they had agreed that target together, they had to come up with ways around it as well. So that's important as an executive. The easy thing is to say, do you know what, forget about it, we'll move off in the other direction. But if you're really passionate about getting there, stick to it. Yes, you maybe need to adjust your steps a little bit, but stick to it if that's what you're really passionate about. And this is just a little template. I mean, there's loads of templates out there, but this could be your action plan, the objectives, the list of goals you want to do as your county, the tasks, what do you need to do to achieve the goals, the success criteria. So how will you identify your success? Because there's no point in saying, oh, this is my goal. You need to celebrate the success. You put the work into it to actually do it. And I mean, there could be goals you've set as a county, so not just the county executives, that maybe the whole clubs are celebrating the success of what you've done. So it's whatever you think those goals are. The time frame, which is key, because they have to be, remember those SMART goals, that are timed, when they're going to do it, and then the resources, what or who can help you complete your tasks. And even for wanting somebody to get involved. So maybe one of those tasks was in relation to a sponsor for a new competition. If you have somebody who's really good in your county at getting sponsorship, and you're going to them, on one hand you'd say, listen, we want you to get involved in the executive, we're going to try and get a sponsor. They'll probably run a mile, versus, listen, we have one goal to get this sponsor, this is the task we have in it, this is how we're going to measure it, we're going to have it done by in 2 months time, and you're one of the resources, we'd love to help us out with it, but we'll also fill in the other resources that's needed from it. It's a lot easier to get them to buy into that, because it's a very clear goal that's needed, versus I have no idea what I'm about to get into here. So your goals will give everybody that bit of focus to go towards. When you do have your goals, make sure you review them, because you need to know that you're progressing, where you stand. Do you need to go a little bit quicker? Do you need to change the dates? Where are you in relation to your progress? Make sure you're in the right direction. As we said, we were going to have 20 under 12 games a year for every player, for instance. And if you didn't know your progress, if you didn't have the right direction, maybe you're only at 5. Okay, so you have to make sure you're going in the right direction. If you didn't deviate and said, you know what, forget about the under 12s, we'll just do the under 10s. The under 12s have enough. Okay, now you're off in a completely different direction. To re-engage with your goals, so if you do get distracted, that at least when you do your review, it takes you back on track and said, you know what, we got distracted by a few things there that shouldn't have happened. Now we're back on track for our goals again. This is where we're going after. To improve your strategy and action plan. So for the counties who have been involved in the volunteer support programme or are currently at the minute, because we're in a final cycle, the ones who really bought into it and did come up with their roadmap have been working away tirelessly on that for the last year or two, because they've very clear goals, very clear steps, very clear who's doing it, and they're improving their strategy. They're improving where they want to be. And also to review to get motivated. Okay, this is what we've done. This is what we've achieved to date. This is what we still need to do. As an executive, now we know where we're going, and it motivates us again. But make sure that you evaluate those goals. And these are just a few questions to ask yourself. Was the goal specific? So when we done it, was the goal specific? Did we know clearly what it was? Was it realistic? Did we set something that we were never going to achieve in the first place? Did I devote the proper resources? So as an executive, did we say we wanted to do X, Y, or Z, but really we put nothing into it? Okay, or do you know what? We couldn't have put any more into it and we didn't. Why did it not work? Did it have accountability? Who was responsible and what time? Did it have accountability? What worked effectively? And on the opposite end, these questions can be really positive. Did it have accountability? Yes, we did. That's why we achieved it. What worked effectively? X, Y, and Z was absolutely brilliant. Or if we didn't do it, you know what? There was 5 points. 4 of them worked, but that last one let us down. So if we actually do it again, we'll make sure to put in the 5th one. And how will I adjust next time? So what will I need to do to change my goals? And some of your goals may be the same from year to year. Paul said it could be the fixtures, or it could be a fundraiser, it could be a sponsor target, whatever it is, could be filling your executive. So some of them may stay the same, but then what's your specific ones you want each year? So just a few questions to help you evaluate your goals in relation to that. So just to sum it up on the last 2 slides, and then if there's any questions, you can fire them in and Paul will answer them. Ask yourself, have we decided on our goals for the year as an executive? That's the first one. And we know from the start that there was a certain percentage said no and a certain percentage said yes. If you haven't, it's really important, because if you haven't, you're all going into executive meetings at the minute. You might think you're on the one page, but you're certainly not. You're going off in different directions. Do they include short, medium, and long-term goals? Did we engage with the volunteer support program to identify these goals? So if you were involved previous, if you are involved now, making sure to get engaged in that to try and help you get those goals. Because not alone are you getting your own goals, you're getting the goal of the full clubs, of everyone involved in it, of where you all want to be in 3 years' time. Is everyone on the executive aware of our targets? The gatekeepers, these 2 or 3 who just want to know everything and don't want to tell anyone else, you're doing your county no favour. Okay, everyone in your executive needs to be aware of what your targets are. The more bodies, the more heads, the greater you're going to get there. Do we schedule checkpoints to review goals? Because if you don't, make sure you put them in. And then finally, do we evaluate our goals at the end of the year? What's the point in setting them if you don't ask yourself how you got on with them for the year? So do we evaluate our goals at the end of the year? Some key questions there to ask yourself. So in relation to goal setting and reaching your county goals, which is the topic of tonight's webinar, dream big. What do you want to achieve as an executive? Don't get caught just in the here and now. What, as a county executive, do you want to achieve this year? Set your goals and take action. And you have your steps now as to how you can set your goals, how you can take action. And remember that that dream can only come true if you've set your goals and if you put an action plan in place to actually get there. That's the only way you can take action. So hopefully tonight's webinar will have given a few points on goal setting, give you a little bit of food for thought on your county executive and how you do this together. and then, of course, to review it. So, Paul, I don't know if you have anything, and as Paula comes in, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat in the Q&A, but I'll let Paula come in because she said she is involved in a lot of planning and stuff, so she'll have some tips there in relation to those as well.
Yeah, no, I think excellent. I think a lot covered. And I think the other way that a lot of people can look at their goal setting is the challenge. What challenges do we see in front of us? How are we going to overcome those? And even how do we challenge our own thinking? And I think there, and 2 slides back, Lynn, you had a list of things there on the goals. And I think to challenge the goals, are we being too easy on ourselves? As you said, Lynn, is that what we achieve all the time? We get through our fixture plan, we're always achieving our fixture plan, but then how do we improve the fixture plan that we are rolling out, as we talked about the meaningful stuff? So it is about the challenge. And I know as well, we talked as well about publicly putting out there what your goals are, committing to them, that commitment. And one way to commit to them is to actually outline that to the clubs, outline that at a county board meeting, and then to provide the regular updates, because I think then the clubs will also, there'll be more buy-in. They'll know maybe why something's on the agenda. They know why the county board's going in a certain direction, and they can get behind helping you achieve those goals as well. So I do think publicly, and like as you say, Lynn, we produce our strategic plan, we produce it into a document, and we put it out there because that's our commitment to it. By writing it down, you are more committed to it as well. So I think that's really important. And I know you'd like Lynn's giving you all a very simple template there. And that's all it is. It doesn't have to be a big elaborate document. It is that simple, but there's also the steps to achieve it. So as I say, I think if people took away even one point of each of the slides tonight, Lynn, it'd be a lot of work done within each county.
Yeah, and especially as we stress at the start, this isn't putting extra work on people. It's actually giving you something. If you do the work on it now, it's less work in the long run, versus I have absolutely no idea what's supposed to be happening next week, next month. That kind of builds towards it to try and make life a little bit easier, is what we're trying to do with our goal setting in relation to it.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, Lynn, because I think everyone says we don't have time for this stuff. Where do we fit this in? But if they actually sat and did this in one meeting, you would find everything you are doing falls into goal setting and planning, but it in a more structured way that actually, as somebody said at the very start, provides the focus that you need then for the year going forward. There doesn't seem to be any questions, Lynn. You're getting off the hook tonight. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, and thanks a million, everyone, because I know we always say it's busy people who come on to the things, but hopefully it has given you some food for thought. And as always, we have recorded this, so it'll go up on our YouTube channel. So if there is other members of your executive that maybe you're going back tomorrow night and saying we need to set goals, and they're like, have you lost the plot? That you can send them a link to actually watch it and realize the benefits of doing it as a county executive, that it's not just one person actually doing this, because that becomes a personal goal and not a county goal. So the importance of actually doing this together. So thanks a million, everyone, and thanks to Paula for the input and everything else in relation to it tonight. Hopefully it has helped yourselves as your counties, and we have a number of other webinars, as you know, coming up. The most important W word. So feel free to actually log on to any of them, and we'll chat to you all very soon. So thanks a million, everyone.